So, resilience, it's something we hear a lot about. But what does it actually look like when things get really tough?
Yeah, like when crisis hits, how do we navigate those moments?
That's exactly what we're diving into today.
With some help from two people who know a thing or two about facing down some pretty intense situations.
We're talking Jacinda Ardern.
Leading New Zealand through, well, I mean, think about it, the Christchurch attacks and a global pandemic.
And then there's Jose Andres.
The chef who's bringing hope and hot meals to disaster zones all over the world with his world central kitchen.
It's going to be fascinating to see what we can learn from their experiences.
Right, because what we're really looking at here isn't just about bouncing back.
It's bigger than that, isn't it?
It's about how we lead, how we act, how we build that sense of resilience.
Both personally and as a community.
Exactly. When we're up against these huge challenges, even tragedies.
I think it's something we can all relate to on some level.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe not on the scale of a global pandemic, thankfully.
Right.
But we all hit those unexpected roadblocks.
Life throws those curveballs,
And that's where I think these insights from people who face those seemingly impossible situations, they become so valuable.
They really do. Because it shows us it is possible.
Okay, let's start with Jacinda Ardern.
Okay.
Talk about trial by fire. I mean, the Christchurch mosque attacks in 2019.
Horrific.
And then the COVID-19 pandemic right on its heels.
I mean, how do you even process that?
How does she handle those crises?
It's really quite remarkable when you look at it. I think what stands out is that ability to balance empathy with decisive action.
And that way she has of bringing everyone together.
Yes, exactly. During a time when everything's pulling people apart.
Let's talk about those gun law reforms after Christchurch.
Right.
I mean, that was swift action.
It was.
And significant, not just words, but concrete change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a vital part of resilience. It's not just about enduring hardship.
Right.
It's about taking that experience, the grief, the shock, and using it to make things better.
So it's about action.
It is. It's about recognizing that need for action and doing something about it, like Ardern did.
And then with the pandemic, her communication style was so important.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the world was in chaos. People were scared.
It was just constant noise.
Yeah.
And she just cut right through it.
She did, with these calm, clear, and honest messages.
And I think that created a sense of stability.
It did. Because in a crisis, people are desperate for information. They need to feel like someone's at the helm,
Even when it feels like the ship's going down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And her communication style built that trust. It said, we're in this together.
So amidst all that chaos, it seems like she had a real understanding of what she could control.
Yeah.
What advice does she actually give for building that resilience? For those of us who aren't, leading a country through a pandemic.
Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. Focus on what you can control. Break things down into smaller steps. And don't forget about your community.
It sounds simple.
It is, but it's about finding those things within your reach.
Yeah.
And making a difference where you can.
And it's interesting that focus on community support, it's something we see with Jose Andres, too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a different approach to resilience, though, wouldn't you say?
It is.
Yeah.
It's more grassroots. With Andres, it's about recognizing that food.
Yeah.
It's more than just fuel, especially in a crisis.
It's comfort, isn't it?
It is. It's dignity. It's a sign that someone cares.
It's hope.
Yes, when everything else feels lost.
And he puts that belief into action with those incredible field kitchens he sets up.
I know. In these disaster zones, places hit by hurricanes, earthquakes, war.
Serving thousands of meals every single day.
It's amazing.
I mean, talk about logistical nightmares.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Coordinating all those supplies, volunteers.
In places where the infrastructure's just gone.
It's mind-boggling.
It must take an insane amount of resilience.
It does. And flexibility and dedication.
Think about Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria in 2017.
Right.
The island was just devastated.
Millions without power, clean water.
And Andres and his team just jumped in.
Amazing.
They adapted to that chaos and ended up serving millions of meals.
Millions. It's incredible.
It wasn't just about the food itself.
No, it was about empowering people.
Right.
Working with those local restaurants, sourcing ingredients from the island.
Helping to restart that economy in the middle of all that devastation.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What other example really highlights that community-driven resilience for you?
Andres talks about how in Puerto Rico, people were cooking for each other.
Really?
Despite everything they'd lost.
Wow.
Sharing what little they had. It really shows you the power of community.
Doesn't it? That human spirit, that instinct to come together when things are tough.
Exactly. It's collective resilience.
It's not just about being strong as individuals. It's about being strong together.
Yes, lifting each other up.
So what advice does Andres have for tapping into that?
For everyday life, even when we're not facing a major disaster,
Yeah.
he keeps it simple. Start small. Be kind. And remember, resilience is about helping others.
So it's not just about how we bounce back. It's about how we help others bounce back, too.
Exactly.
It's that ripple effect.
Yes.
That's amazing. And it brings up a really interesting point.
What's that?
We've seen how resilience shows up in leadership with Ardern.
Right.
And in community action with Andres.
Yeah.
But what connects those approaches?
Ooh, that is a good question.
And how do we cultivate that same resilience in our own lives?
Especially when we're dealing with those smaller, everyday challenges.
That is the question, and that's exactly what we'll be unpacking as we continue our deep dive. So we've seen these inspiring examples, right? Dern, Andres facing down these huge challenges. But how do we actually, build that kind of resilience in ourselves?
It's a great question. And it's kind of the heart of the whole thing, isn't it?
Because it's easy to admire these people from afar.
It is. They're facing extraordinary situations with such grace, such strength.
But then you think, okay, how do I apply that to my life?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
To those everyday challenges. And the good news is,
Yeah?
resilience, it's not just something you're born with or not.
Oh, that's good to hear.
It is. It's a skill.
Okay.
Something you can actually develop.
So it's not about just being, inherently tough.
No, it's more than that.
Okay, so what is it then?
It's about learning how to adapt, to bounce back when things go wrong.
And to keep going when things are tough.
Yeah. Even when you want to just quit.
Yeah.
And there are things we can do both internally and externally to help us get better at it.
Okay, let's break that down. What do you mean by internal factors?
Well, your mindset is huge.
Okay.
People who are resilient, they tend to be more optimistic. They believe they can overcome challenges, even if they don't have all the answers right away.
So it's like a can-do attitude.
Yeah.
Even when everything's going wrong.
Exactly. It's not about ignoring the difficulty, but about focusing on what you can control and looking for ways to move forward.
Didn't Ardern say something like that?
She did. Focus on what you can control. It fits perfectly here.
Okay, so it's about channeling your energy into action.
Yes. Instead of getting bogged down by things you can't change.
Makes sense. Besides mindset, what else is there?
Emotional regulation.
Okay.
Being able to manage your emotions, especially when you're stressed.
The resilient people, they don't freak out when things go wrong.
Well, they might still feel those emotions, but they don't let them take over completely.
Okay.
They have tools for coping.
Like what?
Things like mindfulness, deep breathing, talking it out with someone you trust.
So it's about being self-aware, taking care of yourself.
Exactly. Resilience is built on a foundation of well-being. Mental, physical, emotional.
So getting enough sleep, exercise, all that good stuff.
It all plays a part. You've got to take care of the whole package.
Now, what about those external factors you mentioned?
Support systems. Having people you can rely on.
Yeah.
Your community. Access to resources.
Makes sense. It's like that saying, it takes a village.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think Jose Andres' work really highlights that.
How so?
It's about that shared humanity, right? Coming together to support each other, especially during those really tough times.
It's like he's proving we're not meant to go through it alone.
Right. And it's not just about receiving support, it's about giving it, too. Being a part of that community.
So it's like this collective resilience.
Exactly. It's that we're all in this together kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that even small acts of kindness,
Yeah.
they can make a real difference.
I love that. So to recap, we've got those internal factors. Mindset, managing emotions, self-care.
Right.
And then the external stuff, having a good support network.
Yeah.
But how do we actually put this into practice? Like, where do we start?
That's the million-dollar question. And luckily for us, that's what we're going to be talking about in the final part of our deep dive. We'll be exploring some really practical steps, things you can start doing today to build your resilience.
I'm excited to hear it.
Stay tuned.
All right, so we've got the foundation, right? Resilience, it's a skill, something we can work on. We've talked about mindset, support systems, how we handle stress. But I'm ready for the nitty-gritty now. How do we actually put this into practice?
I like that, the nitty-gritty. And the great thing is there are things we can do starting right now.
Today.
Yeah. We don't have to wait. And it doesn't have to be this huge life overhaul either.
Okay, good. Because I can barely keep up with my laundry as it is.
I hear you. It's really about those small, consistent actions. They add up over time.
I like that. Small steps, big impact. So what's one of those tools we can start using today?
Well, we've touched on it a little, but mindfulness.
Mm,
It's super powerful.
mindfulness. Okay. I know it's kind of a buzzword these days.
It is.
So what does it actually mean, like in terms of building resilience?
It's about paying attention to right now,
Hmm.
what's happening in this moment, without judging it.
Okay.
Noticing your thoughts, feelings, what you're sensing in your body.
Okay, so like all of it.
Yeah. But not getting swept away by it.
So it's like hitting pause on that mental chatter,
Right.
the stuff that can really send us spiraling, especially when things are tough.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Because all that mental noise, it can be exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And it often makes things seem worse than they are.
Okay, I'm listening. But how do we actually do it? Mindfulness? Does it mean meditation retreats and, chanting?
Not necessarily. It can be a lot simpler than that.
Good.
Even just a few minutes each day, focusing on your breath,
Okay.
feeling your chest rise and fall,
Yeah.
or paying attention to what you see, hear, feel around you as you walk or eat.
Just bringing yourself back to the present.
Exactly.
I like it. What else can we add to that toolkit, that resilience toolkit?
Another big one, cultivating a growth mindset.
Okay, growth mindset. That's another one we hear a lot. Remind me what that is again and how it connects to resilience.
It's about believing that your abilities, your intelligence, they're not set in stone. You can actually develop them
Okay.
with effort and learning.
So it's like instead of thinking, I'm terrible at this, you think, I can get better at this.
Exactly. It's about seeing challenges as opportunities to grow, not as proof that you're not good enough.
So instead of getting stuck in that I can't mindset, it's more like I can't yet.
Yes. And that little shift, it can make a huge difference.
It's about embracing the learning process, even when it's tough. What else have you found helpful in building resilience?
Setting goals, for me, that's been huge.
Goals.
Yeah, it gives me something to work towards. It gives me a sense of purpose, especially when things feel chaotic.
I can see that, but how do you avoid setting those goals that are just way too big?
It's about those small steps again. Remember, Arjun, focus on what you can control. So instead of trying to run a marathon tomorrow, maybe start with walking around the block a few times a week.
Small steps, big impact. What else? Any other tips?
Oh, don't underestimate the power of talking to people.
Like venting?
Yeah. Talking to friends, family, a therapist, sharing what you're going through, it can really help you process those emotions, gain perspective, and it reminds you that you're not alone.
That community piece again. Like we're meant to help each other.
We are. And remember, resilience, it's not a destination, it's a journey. And there will be setbacks, that's just part of life, but every time you get back up, you're a little stronger, a little more ready for whatever comes next.
So as we wrap up, what's the main thing you want our listeners to take away from this whole conversation about resilience?
That it's possible. For everyone. It's not about being superhuman or never going through tough times. It's about building those skills, those mindsets, those support systems that let us weather the storms, learn from them, and come out stronger.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. What's one small step you can take today to nurture your own resilience? Maybe a few minutes of mindfulness, reaching out to a friend, or simply acknowledging your strengths. Because even the smallest actions, they can create a ripple effect of change. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.